I've had it though, out there on the farm. I got an idea last summer for a brand new career that I've been giving some serious thought to. And the way this happened, I was set up out at the county fair. And I had a booth set up out there, and all it amounted to was just a folding table. And what I was doing out there, I was trying to sell pole buildings. My son and I used to put up some pole buildings. And I was out at the fair trying to push these buildings and really doing more visiting than I was anything else. But I've got a stack of flyers printed up that advertise my speaking service. And they say world's worst farmer, and they got my pretty picture up in one corner. And I had a bunch of these flyers laying on the corner of this table. And this man and woman and this little old boy come walking by. And I'd say this little guy was maybe 8 or 9 years old, but he walked up that table and he looked down at those flyers and then he looked up at me and he said, "Is this you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "How come?" I said, "You mean how come I'm the world's worst farmer?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I don't know. I just wasn't good at it. I just couldn't cut the mustard." And he looked down at those flyers again and he looked up at me and just as serious said, "Well, then are you running for Congress?" Well, I'd like to finish up my part of the program tonight by doing a few poems for you, if I may. I usually write the poems when I'm out in the field working on the tractor or the combine. Kind of gives me something to think about while I'm waiting for the next breakdown. So most of my poems are short ones. But the first one that I would like to do for you, I'm real proud of, because this is the first and only thing that I've ever written with anything like a serious thought or a message to it. And the title of this poem is Old Bill. And Bill was a farmer that lived the next place to us when I was growing up. And he had a little shop. He was a good mechanic and always working on a piece of machinery, either for himself or likely as not, as a favor for some neighbor. And it just seemed like I was over there all the time, and I really looked up to Bill. And he was the inspiration for this poem. And this just might jog a memory of an old Bill in your path, because almost everybody has an old Bill. And there's a lesson in this poem for all of us, and I hope you enjoy it. Old Bill. I'm going to see old Bill someday. I always said but never did. Old Bill was the best pal I had when I was just a kid. He used to tell me stories about places near and far, and old Bill knew everything there was to know about a car. And old Bill always understood when I talked of troubles that I had, and I'd tell things to Bill that I wouldn't tell my dad. I'd ride my bike to his place nearly every day. I thought I was helping out, but I was probably in the way. But old Bill never seemed to mind, though he'd often say to me, "Boy, you'll never amount to nothing, that's pretty plain to see." And sometimes he would tell me, "Boy, I'm busy here today. I ain't got time to fool with you, just stay out of the way." But if a couple of days went by and I hadn't been around, well, he'd call to see if I was sick and say, "Boy, I thought you'd drowned." Well, I used to help him on his farm, planting corn, baling hay, because I knew when the job was done that I'd be sure to get some pay. And he'd do things for me, and of course I never paid a dime. He'd just say, "We'll let it go and I'll charge you double next time." Well, then I grew to be a man and I left old Bill behind. I never went to see him much, I just didn't have the time. Well, then old Bill grew old and his health was getting bad. And at last they put him in a home, and I thought then, how sad. I'm going by and see old Bill, I'd often tell my wife, just to tell him thanks for his part in my life. Just to chat with him and visit and help him pass the lonely day. Yeah, I'm going by and see old Bill the first time I'm out that way. And his daughter told my wife that he often speaks of me. Yeah, I got to get by and see old Bill when I get some time that's free. Well, I went to see old Bill today at his final resting place. And as I thought about those years gone by, the tears streamed down my face. Yes, I cried a lot of tears today, but not just because Bill was dead. The tears I cried were tears of shame for the things I'd left unsaid. Oh, why do we in our busy life just never find the time to cheer the heart of some dear friend that the years have left behind? Oh, if I ever get the chance, and I hope someday I will, I pray that I'll be man enough to be some boy's old Bill.
On June 19th at 1 p.m., that life changed. Lewis collapsed. A couple of days later, in intensive care, he spoke his first word. Well. They moved him to a new room and he expanded his talk with, "What the heck happened?" We are all getting old. Lewis was too. He was only 59, but had already had 6-way bypass heart surgery. Now he'd had a stroke. Many people die from strokes. Many times they should not. Lewis didn't. This might be a good time for all of us to think about the warning signs of a stroke. They are sudden numbness or weakness of the face or an arm or leg, especially on one side of the body. Sudden confusion, trouble speaking or understanding. Sudden trouble walking, dizziness or loss of balance and coordination. Or a sudden and severe headache with no known cause. There are very good medical treatments for strokes, but you need to act fast. Remember, fast. Check the person's face. Ask the person to smile. Does one side of the face droop? Check their arms. Ask the person to raise both arms. Does one arm drift downward? Check their speech. Ask the person to repeat a simple phrase. Mary had a little lamb. Is their speech slurred or strange? Time is of the essence. If you see any of these signs, call 911. If you are the one experiencing these signs, don't argue. Don't resist those who are trying to help. Call 911 immediately. The medical help for strokes is time sensitive. The world doesn't stop for folks who've had a stroke. But recovery is slow. Small steps are the rule. After his stroke, Lewis spent 6 weeks in the hospital with physical and speech therapy, relearning the basics. He'd come a long way when he got to go to the coffee shop again. And getting to see all the guys again was great.
Unfortunately, no one said I was good looking. Just that I was looking good.
Lewis' sense of humor was back, and he attributes the confidence and optimism of his therapists for that. December 2007 was another milestone. Over the years, Lewis had become a valued asset to the USDA as their #1 bad example. So the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service booked him to talk.
I knew this was going to be a good day for me when my neighbor called me up real early this morning and said, "Hey, Bumgarner, I got a big surprise for you. All your cows are in." Millersburg is just a spot on the road as a definition of a one-horse town. But even though we're small, we'd like to thank ourselves as progressive and forward-looking. As a matter of fact, we are getting right now in Millersburg ready to put in our first stoplight. And we're so proud of that. We haven't got it bought yet, but we've got the colors all picked out. On Sunday afternoon, there's a creek that runs up the backside of Raymond's farm, and he was just meandering along this creek, making his way home. And he come up on a bunch of Baptists, have the baptize ceremony right out in this creek. Raymond, he just walked to him too, right out in the water. And this Baptist preacher, he was putting pretty well on a roll, and he put his arm around Raymond's shoulder, and he said, "Sir, would you like to find Jesus?" And Raymond said, "Yes, I would." So the old preacher jumped in under the water, and you raised him back up and said, "Now, did you find Jesus?" And Raymond said, "No, I didn't." And the old preacher dumped him under, he held him under for 10 or 15 seconds, and he jerked him back up and said, "Now, did you find Jesus this time?" And
Raymond said, "No. Are you sure this is where he fell in?" And old Raymond, his tractor rolled down the hill, and the brake gave away on it, and it rolled down the hill and rolled into a tree and done quite a bit of damage to it. And Raymond was in insurance office one day and speaking to the insurance about it, and the insurance agent said, "Well, Raymond, that tractor's not covered for that. It's only covered for fire. It's only covered if it burns up." And Raymond said, "I'll be back in a couple hours." Well, we bought our farm back in 1979. And that was just about the perfect time to buy a farm, if you didn't want a farm too long anyway. But we've been out there now for about 28 years, a little better than 28 years, and we are coming along a little bit and making a little bit of progress on the thing. And we bought the farm in '79. We give $1,000 an acre for it. And now we've got it paid down to $1,200. My wife and I have been married for 31 years, and she with me today, and my daughters too. And we've had a real good marriage, and just had very few problems. We get along great, but it's not all been a bed of roses. We have our little spats now and then. Everybody does. And this happened to me just last week. I won this argument. I got in the last word. I was so proud of myself. And very unusual, before it was all over, she come to me. She come to me on her hands and knees and looked up at me with those big brown eyes and said, "Come out from under that bed, you coward."
Louis Baumgartner may be the world's worst at farming, but he's pretty darn good at keeping us smiling. Stroke has not been the end for Louis Baumgartner, nor does it need to be for others who have had major life changes. Faith, hope, and love. Faith in tomorrow, a hope that is willing to work, and love for and the love of those around us can make all of life a treasure.
We need to laugh a little more, and I appreciate your kind attention and your laughter, and I think sometimes we take life a little bit too serious, and I don't think life was meant to be a drudgery or meant to be a chore. I think life was meant to be enjoyed, and I think to do that, we need to laugh a little more. And my theory is kind of this: if I laugh at myself first, I beat the neighbors to it. Well, this is the world's worst farmer urging you to plant the seeds of friendship, fertilize with kindness and understanding, cultivate with a sense of humor, and you'll harvest a happy and successful life. If you're not the best audience I ever had, you're pretty close. Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed it. Thanks very much.